My children tried to put me in the guest house, so I destroyed them legally. They slid the document across the polished oak table like it was a menu. At the top, in a cold, blocky font, were the words, Property Transition and Succession Agreement. Just like that, the 720-acre ranch my late husband and I had bled for, the house where I had raised them, was being handed back to me with conditions, my own children. But it was one sentence buried near the bottom in the cold, sterile language of lawyers that stopped my breath. The occupant, Colonel Abigail Harper, may remain on the premises in the guest quarters, contingent on behavior and mental clarity. Guest quarters contingent on behavior, as if I were a tenant on probation in the life I had built. My son Ethan spoke first. He always did. "We just want what's best for the ranch, Mom," he said, his voice smooth with a practiced reasonableness. "You're not getting any younger. This gives you security." My daughter Lauren leaned forward, her voice a sugary, condescending whisper. "You'll still be here, of course, in the little house by the creek. You've always loved the morning sun there." My youngest Grace said nothing. She just watched me, her hands folded, her expression unreadable. I let my eyes move from one face to the next. The children I had nursed through fevers and fought for in parent-teacher conferences, now sitting before me like a hostile board of directors. The silence stretched. Finally, I picked up the pen they had placed so hopefully beside the document. I didn't sign. I clicked it once, twice, then I set it down. "I see," I said, my voice dangerously even. "So, this is what it comes to." "No need to drag this out, Mom," Ethan said with a sigh. "It's just business." Business. They had taken 42 years of my sweat, my marriage, and my memories, and reduced it to a transaction. I looked down at the table, then back at them. "I will not sign this," I said. The air in the room went cold. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You'll lose everything if you don't." But I had already stood up. "You've made your position clear," I said. "Now allow me to make mine." I walked out of the room. I made it to the back porch before the shaking started. Not from fear, but from the sudden shocking realization that the love I had given them might never have been enough. Out there, the vast Montana sky stretched out, indifferent. I had commanded 300 soldiers on a field in Iraq. I had managed million-dollar supply chains and evacuated convoys under fire. But nothing in my 30 years of service prepared me for the moment your own children try to conquer you in your own kitchen, smiling as they do it. They thought I would bend. They thought I was too tired, too lonely, too sentimental to fight back. They had no idea what they had just awakened. If you have ever been pushed to the edge by your own blood, then you know that moment where sorrow turns into steel. I didn't just walk away from that table. I walked into a quiet, smart, and unforgiving war. A war I didn't start, but one I was damn sure going to finish. I stayed on that porch until the sun bled out behind the crazy mountains. The wind picked up, rattling the tin roof. Inside, I could hear their muffled voices strategizing, waiting for me to break. I walked down the steps, my boots crunching on the gravel path. This wasn't just property. This was bone and muscle and memory. This was the place I had buried my husband, General Robert Harper, under the shade of a cottonwood tree. And these were the children who had apparently forgotten whose daughter they were. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study, the house silent around me, and I began to assemble a timeline. Every strange visit, every veiled suggestion from the past year, Lauren offering to manage my mail, Grace asking if I'd updated my will. Ethan pushing me to think about the future. It wasn't concern, it was reconnaissance. At 5:17 a.m., I made coffee, strong, black, the same way I drank it in supply tents in the middle of nowhere. I stood at the window, watching the shadows recede from the fields. I was not going to wait to be devoured. From the back of a closet, I pulled out an old metal footlocker. My service files, land deeds, and tucked between them something I hadn't touched in years. The original land survey from when we'd first bought the ranch. Rocking Horse Ranch wasn't just any piece of land. Portions of it had been used as military training grounds during World War II for equine logistics. That land wasn't just sentimental. It was historically protected. My late husband never cared for paperwork. That was always my domain. I kept everything. In the military, you document, you file, you prepare. Not for today, but for the day someone tries to rewrite your story. By noon, I had filled 2 folders. I picked up the phone and called Sergeant Major Tom Callahan, retired. We'd served together on my final deployment. "Tom," I said, "it's Abigail Harper. It's time." He didn't ask questions. He just said, "Where do you want to meet?" He understood. I wasn't going to lash out. I wasn't going to argue. They wanted a war of paperwork. They were about to learn who had taught them how to fight. Tom's old truck pulled in that afternoon. He was broader now, grayer, but he still had that unshakable steadiness. He sat at my kitchen table, no small talk, and opened the folder. He flipped to the old map with the Department of Defense stamp. He whistled low. "This land isn't just yours, Colonel," he said. "Part of it is still under a protected military designation. That's going to matter." We spent 2 hours dissecting every legal angle. "I don't just want to block them," I said. "I want to build a wall of steel so high they can never try this again." Tom leaned back. "Then you need someone meaner than me. You need Judge Riley." I'd already called him. Retired Judge Malcolm Riley lived in a cabin with no internet and a deep distrust of anyone under 60. He was blunt, brilliant, and had once shut down a corporate land grab on behalf of a Vietnam veteran in under a week. I had an appointment for the next morning. That night, I walked the perimeter of the ranch by flashlight. Every gate latch I checked, every barn door I secured was a silent act of reclamation. This place was mine, not because of a deed, but because I had lived and breathed every inch of it. The next morning, I drove to Judge Riley's cabin. He was already on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. "Tom told me," he said, skipping the pleasantries. "Let's see what you've got." We spent 3 hours at his table. He read every document, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When he reached the clause about my mental clarity, he stopped. "They want to control the narrative," he said. "Paint you as unstable. But this," he tapped my military commendations. "This shows a lifetime of leadership. We can flip that." "I don't want pity," I said. "You won't get it," he replied, a grim smile on his face. "After we flatten them, you'll get respect." By the time I left, the plan was in place. Legal counters, public positioning, and a quiet warning sent to the right state and federal offices. They would never see it coming. That afternoon, I called Sarah Bennett, the editor of the local paper. She was sharp, factual, and had a reputation for truth-telling. I told her everything. No tears, no pleading, just the facts. The succession agreement, the mental competency clause, the land's military history. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she just said, "I'm coming by in the morning." The article dropped online 3 days later. The headline was a blade. "Decorated veteran and ranch owner pressured by children to sign away historic land." The story spread. Local outlets picked it up. Comments flooded in from people who remembered me, who remembered my husband. My name meant something in this county. It meant integrity. It meant work. I spent that Sunday in the garden clipping roses. Lauren's car drove by twice. She didn't stop. The next day, Ethan called. I didn't answer. That evening, Grace sent a text. "Can we talk without the drama?" I turned off my phone. I had no interest in their performance of remorse. They had made their intentions clear. My only job now was to make sure they never got a second chance. The silence from my children broke on a Monday afternoon. Lauren appeared at my gate, dressed in a tan trench coat, looking less like a daughter and more like a hostile negotiator. I watched her from the kitchen window. She didn't knock. She stood on the porch, waiting to be acknowledged. I opened the door and leaned on the frame. "We need to talk about the article," she said, her voice tight. "The family is upset. Ethan has had calls from his office." I said nothing. "We're willing to revise the document," she offered, as if this were a great concession. A short, dry laugh escaped me. "Lauren, you were willing to have me sign away everything I built. Now you're concerned about reputation." Then came the threat, veiled and ugly. "If this continues, there will be damage to assets, to relationships. You could lose sympathy if people start looking into your past decisions, the tax filings, that inheritance you never reported in 2002. They had been digging. I expected it. What they didn't know was that I had nothing to hide. Every dollar, every clause, every mistake I'd ever made had already been disclosed to Judge Riley. "Do what you need to do," I said, my voice calm. "But do it quickly." And I shut the door. That evening, a 42-page revised proposal arrived by courier. The language was softer, full of corporate jargon like custodial flexibility and legacy restructuring, but the intent was the same. They wanted control. I didn't sign it. Instead, I had Judge Riley send a certified letter. Any further attempt to coerce or defame would be met with a formal civil complaint and a request for a public injunction. The retaliation began. An anonymous zoning complaint, a whisper campaign at church, cold shoulders at the feed store. It didn't hurt. It sharpened me. Then Ethan went too far. He tried to access one of my inactive bank accounts tied to the ranch's agricultural subsidies. He used an old login, likely thinking I was too senile to have changed it. The system flagged the attempt and the bank called me directly. I reported it, not for charges, but to document the attempt. A few days later, an unstamped envelope appeared in my mailbox. Inside, a single typed line. "They're planning to sell the ranch behind your back. There's a buyer already lined up." I didn't need to know who sent it. I called Rebecca Hayes, a retired Air Force officer turned estate consultant. She confirmed it in an hour. An exploratory inquiry had been filed by a private equity group in Denver. "How do we stop it?" I asked. "We don't stop it," she said, her voice grim. "We expose it." That afternoon, my late husband's old friend, Ellen Carter, pulled up in a cherry red truck. She worked for a conservation trust. "I saw something that made me think of you," she said, handing me a folder. Inside were handwritten notes from my husband, sketches, and a draft letter to the Department of Agriculture proposing a long-term conservation easement for the ranch. He'd never filed it, not wanting to push me while I was grieving. But he knew even then that this land might one day need to be protected from our own. The final piece of the puzzle had just clicked into place. The land would not be sold. The mother would not be erased. The next move would not be defense. It would be a public reckoning. The night I invited them all for a final dinner was cold and still. I lit the fireplace, not for warmth, but for the memory of what this house used to be. I set the table with my mother's bone-white porcelain. They all came. They sat tense and watchful, waiting for my surrender. After a mostly silent meal, I stood at the head of the table just as my husband used to. "I found the draft," I said, my voice clear in the quiet room. "The conservation easement your father planned years ago. I filed it this morning." Lauren went pale. Ethan cleared his throat. "I also know about the buyer in Denver," I continued, "and the forged financial statements and the power of attorney you attempted to file." Lauren scoffed. "Mom, we were protecting you." "Protecting me?" I said, my voice sharper now. "You were protecting your inheritance. You handed me a contract and asked me to sign away my home in exchange for living in a room like a guest." Ethan muttered something about my being ungrateful. "I spent 30 years in the military," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I have read classified documents in the dead of night with enemy drones overhead. I know how to read silence. I know how to see betrayal. And I have seen everything I needed to see in your eyes. You need to leave now. Ethan took a step toward me, his fists clenched. You can't throw us out. We're your children. You stopped being my children the moment you treated me like a legal problem to solve. In that moment, Rebecca, my assistant, who had been upstairs the whole time, spoke softly into the hidden microphone in my scarf. Audio recorded, video feed is stable. I have everything, Colonel. Cries they froze. The sheriff's deputy will be here in 5 minutes to deliver the official restraining orders, I said calmly. They left in a storm of shocked silence. After the door closed, I leaned against it, my legs trembling slightly, not from fear, but from release. The tide had turned. The morning after, the frost on the porch railing seemed to glitter with a new kind of light. My attorney, Daniel Brooks, had already filed the emergency motions. The assets tied to the ranch and the family trust were frozen. The LLC my children had set up as a holding vehicle for a silent buyout was now dead in the water, flagged for fraudulent activity. The surprise wasn't that they had tried to sell the land. The surprise was how long they had been planning it, but their intricate web of quiet nudges and passive comments had been no match for the simple, unyielding truth. Daniel had a focused, slightly dangerous tone on the phone. The judge reviewing the motions was a man he knew well, a man who had seen this story play out before. The restraining order barred them from the property. Rebecca now had a limited but effective power of attorney, and I had started carrying a small recorder again. Old habits. A few days later, a letter arrived from Grace's attorney full of thinly veiled threats masked as a plea for restorative mediation. I didn't respond. Instead, I wrote a letter of my own to the State Bar Association, a formal ethics complaint backed by recordings and testimony. Let the law decide what lines they had crossed. Lauren's visit was unexpected. She stood on the porch, no makeup, her hair windblown, looking less like a strategist and more like a woman who had run out of road. She told me she never hated me. She was just jealous of the trust my husband had placed in me. I see the difference now, she said, her voice cracking. You earned it. I demanded it. She apologized for not showing up at my military promotion ceremony decades ago. I only knew how to love people when they were beneath me, she confessed. I told her I forgave her, but I no longer included her in my life. She left behind a folder. Inside were old photos of my husband proposing to me, photos I thought had been lost for decades. The final meeting was with Ethan. He had taken a plea deal, probation, and restitution. We met at his attorney's office. He looked smaller, tired. I don't have an apology that would matter, he said. He admitted he had lost me the day he decided I was expendable. Don't contact me, I told him. Until you've lived 1 full year without lying, manipulating, or taking from another person. If you can do that, we'll see. As I left, he spoke one last time. I kept the photo, he said. Of you and Dad at your commissioning. Then remember who raised you, I replied, and walked away without looking back. The lavender bloomed early that year. The land, like me, had finally unclenched. I donated part of the property to a local women veterans shelter. They began building small cabins near the south pasture, a place for women caught between service and invisibility. I knew that place well. My legacy would not be a name on a deed passed down to ungrateful children. It would be a sanctuary, a place to start again. One evening, Grace came by with her daughter, now 9. They brought dinner. At the table, Grace looked around the familiar room and smiled. The place feels different, she said. It is, I replied. Because I am. Her daughter leaned into me and whispered that she wanted to live here someday. I kissed the top of her head. Maybe she would, or maybe she'd go build something of her own. Either way, she would know where she came from. That night, I rehung the photo of my husband and me on the day of my promotion. The woman in that picture, the one who led with dignity, still lived here. The moral in one line. Love can be unconditional, but respect must be earned, and betrayal from your own blood doesn't make you weaker, it turns a mother into an unbreakable force.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. Watch the full video for more details.